I'm Lauren Hyams. I'm the Community Learning Officer at the Churchill Museum and Cabinet War Rooms. And I've been involved in the Dig for Victory project on the education side of the project. So working with the school groups and the community groups that come in and do the gardening on the project. At the Churchill Museum and Cabinet War Rooms we do a lot of stuff about Britain in the Second World War and what life was like for people in the Second World War. So we talk about food and rationing and the Dig for Victory campaign a lot. And we started working with the Royal Parks on kind of outdoor activities that maybe we could use to bring the museum out of the bunker and into the beautiful St James's Park. And then it just kind of started that we thought, what if they would let us grow a Second World War allotment in the middle of St James's Park? And the park said yes. So it's a partnership project. The park's gardeners and all their contacts have been working really, really hard on the garden, as well as all the school and education projects. Yeah, I think it's been really successful. People have seemed to really, really enjoy seeing the vegetables, and a lot of the children that have been in don't really know how the vegetables grow because they just see them from the supermarket and they don't understand how they actually grow in the ground and how people grow them. So that's been a really amazing success, kind of showing them the different vegetables and the difference between the vegetables that people ate in Britain during the 1940s and what we eat in Britain now, and the different places that food comes from, and talking about Dig for Victory campaign and rationing in the Second World War. And people have just really enjoyed seeing the allotment in the middle of the park. I think people think it's a surprise. They kind of could just come in and see this here, and it's really lovely. So yeah, it's been really successful. Yeah, well, all of the stuff in the allotment over there is the Second World War allotment. So we've growing things that they would have grown in 1940s with 1940s varieties. So we've got Harbinger tomatoes, home guard potatoes, lots of different stuff. So carrots, onions, broccoli, lots of different stuff like that. Whereas in the modern day allotment, which is behind me here, we've got kind of more different food that people eat in Britain now. So we've got aubergines, we've got coriander, we've got mouli, we've got okra, sweet corn, so lots and lots of stuff that we eat now that people wouldn't have eaten during the 1940s. We've got rocket growing in the modern day allotment because kind of people eat it in salads a lot now, but in the 1940s it would have been a weed. No one would have eaten it, so, but obviously it's kind of very, very popular now and quite expensive to buy, so we've been growing lots of rocket. We have different groups that come in. The groups that come in every week take all the produce away with them. That they come in, do the gardening, take the stuff away with them. So they do obviously taste all the food, and the school kids were going back with bags full of vegetables, which was really great. And I think that people do just take, you know, when they're here, people are taking from the herbs, smelling them, tasting them, and that's absolutely fine. And you know, some of the tomatoes that are ripe have gone, but that's absolutely fine. We don't mind people helping themselves really, as long as it's not too much, but it's fine. The Dig for Victory campaign in the Second World War was to encourage people to grow as much food as they could to supplement the rations that people got, because the government introduced rationing to make sure that everybody had an equal amount of food in Britain during the Second World War. So it wasn't a matter of how rich you were and how much food you could buy, to make sure that everybody had an equal share of food. So if you've ever seen you know, 1 week's adult rations, it's not a huge amount of food. So to supplement the official rations, people were encouraged to grow as much vegetables as they could to supplement their diet, to feed their families really. So the Dig for Victory campaign was a Ministry of Food campaign that basically produced lots of pamphlets and videos and film to encourage people and show people how they could grow their own allotments. We have there's a film in the Churchill Museum Cabinet War Rooms, a film about the Dig for Victory campaign, and there's lots of kind of excerpts, interviews with people who were growing their own food during the 1940s and the Dig for Victory campaign, and there is kind of the archive footage from the Imperial War Museum archives, and there's lots of posters around the allotment as well that were all Second World War posters. I think it was a way for people to do their bit. So if people, you know, elderly people who couldn't go off and fight or work in the factories, it was their way of kind of contributing to the war effort. So growing food to feed their families. Lots of children joined in the Dig for Victory campaign, so before and after school they were all kind of working on their allotments to help their families. So it's kind of a bit of, you know, everyone did what they could, and for a lot of people who couldn't go and fight or work in the factories, the Dig for Victory campaign was a way for them to help the war effort. We've got cabbages, broccoli, carrots, onions, tomatoes, peas, runner beans, lots and lots of different things like that. Potatoes are obviously really, really useful, and they were very useful during the Second World War, and people were encouraged to eat as many potatoes as possible, because wheat to make bread had to be imported from places like Canada. So obviously the ships were being torpedoed, so the wheat they couldn't import all the wheat, but potatoes are really cheap and easy to grow in this country. So people were encouraged to eat potatoes with all their meals. You know, potatoes for breakfast, potatoes for lunch, potatoes for dinner, and stop eating as much bread. So that was really important. And things like carrots are so abundant and so easy to grow in this country. So yeah, and you know, they had the characters Dr. Carrot and Potato Pete to encourage children to eat carrots and potatoes, because they were so keen for people to eat them. And they, you know, had songs about how you should eat the potato peelings, because where all the nutrients are, and that children could see in the dark if they ate lots of carrots. So things like that. I'd like people to be able to see that it's not that difficult to grow vegetables, and even if they don't have their own allotment, because I know especially in London people who would like to have allotments can't. There's, you know, 7-year-long waiting lists for allotments in London, so that people can grow. You know, we had a bin full of just a dustbin full of potatoes that was growing. We've got tomatoes in grow bags and big pots, and so that things aren't that difficult to grow, and you can grow them just on balconies and herbs in you know, window boxes and things like that. So I think that's quite important, and also it's quite important for children to know where the food comes from and how it grows, really. So it's not just from the supermarket, that it's actually, they know it's grown and that someone is growing it. Yeah, there's lots of kind of sustainable development links as well. So things that they were doing in the Second World War for the war effort. So, you know, salvage, things like that, which is recycling now. But they were doing it during the Second World War for the war effort. So making those links that people used to do it and make to amend, you know, reusing things, not just buying things and disposing of them. So buying things and mending them, reusing them. Things like that would be really important. So there's lots of kind of information about that around the allotment as well. Yeah, and it's also where you're buying your produce, so that seasonal food, you know, so that people aren't buying, you know, beans in the winter because they're flying in from Kenya and things like that, and you know, food miles. So that's kind of to do with the Second World War as well, because we imported a lot of food and then had to stop importing food and grow our own food during the Second World War because of the bombing. But now it's a different reason to maybe grow your own food and stop importing food because of the damage it's doing to the environment. We hope that the project, I mean, we've had about 3,000 school children having education sessions out in the allotment, and we really, really hope that will continue, and that those children, that some of the schools that have come to see the allotment are going to go back and have their own allotment at school. So that'd be really important, kind of as a legacy for the project, that schools set up their own allotments in the school grounds. So I think that would be kind of something that I'd be really pleased with. We have a family healthy living week, which is the 27th to the 31st of August, and there'll be free family activities here every day from 12 till 3. So there's arts and crafts activities for children. There's going to be, they can plant, they can have a look at all the vegetables and see what's going on. And we're also going to be having some cooking demonstrations as well during that week that are completely free. And there's a harvest fair, which is the 29th and 30th of September, which we're going to have farm animals, the heavy horses from the Royal Parks, and cooking demonstrations as well, and it's all free. Allotments seem to be very fashionable at the moment, and I hope it will stay, because there's always been people, you know, growing their own allotments and growing their own food on allotments and loving the lifestyle when they have an allotment, and I really think it will stay. And I'm not sure it could be quite as much as they had during the Second World War, when places like Clapham Common were just covered in allotments. The whole of Clapham Common was allotments. I'm not sure it could go to that again, but hopefully more and more people will kind of learn how to do it, and then it's not as difficult as people may think.